So my family begged for the opportunity to watch my daughter, 6 months old, instead of sending her to daycare. My mom has been an angel and watches her 2 to 3 days a week, and I fill in the rest with other family members. However, my mother-in-law, MIL, has been an issue from the start, telling people that I'm keeping the baby away from her just because I don't invite her to see the baby. I just wish she would take the initiative to ask, instead of me pushing my child on her, if that makes sense. Well, I agreed to let her come for 1 day a week, but she decided she wanted to do half days instead. Whatever. So I get home from work one afternoon, and my mother-in-law and her mother are in my living room playing with the baby. I love her mother, but I had no clue she was coming to my house. When I arrived, the baby was tired because of a missed nap, so that Grandma could visit. So I immediately take her to put her down for a nap. And they left. So I decided to send a text that says, "I would appreciate you asking me or letting me know before you invite someone to the house. Nana is always welcome. I just like to know who is here." My mother-in-law ignored me for days and didn't respond. Then my fiancé goes to talk to her, and she says she is mad at me for talking to her that way. So I call her, and she begins to tell me I'm rude and that I should have never said anything to her for inviting her own mother over. She never apologized. She told me I was a witch and also told me to keep my mouth shut when I'm talking to an elder. So apparently, I'm not allowed to have a preference of how my home or childcare is handled. I have no issues with her mother visiting. That's not the problem. The problem is, she doesn't respect me and doesn't think she needs to tell me these things in my own home. So I told her until she can learn to communicate appropriately with me and talk to me with respect as the parent of my child, she can't watch her anymore. Am I wrong for this? Edit. I didn't know everyone wanted so much detail. I was trying to keep it as short as possible. Yes, we don't have the best history. She is a drinker and doesn't work. She has been handed everything in life and gave my fiancé a pretty rough upbringing with drinking and drugs, but she has been clean from drugs for several years now. But I've tried very hard to keep the peace and allow her to see our child wherever she asked, and I have even taken her over to see her on occasion. I have asked my mom and other family members to communicate with me. They all know they can't just invite people over here without me knowing. I understand that his mother might not have thought about that or had an issue with it. That's not my gripe, and Grandma coming over is not an issue either. Sure, maybe I could have just looked past it, but I felt it would be better to express my wants for communication in the beginning instead of letting things build up. I had a feeling she wouldn't be happy with me giving her any rules because no one ever does, but I didn't expect her to treat me the way she did when I made a simple request. Also, after my fiancé talked to her with no avail, I sent her a text and said, "We need to talk. I can call you or come to you, just preferably not in front of the baby. Let me know what works best for you." This is after she ignored my original text for days. I was trying to set up a time to just talk and figure things out. Her response to that text was, "I will never apologize for having my mother over, and we should be welcome to come anytime we want to." I told her that's not how things work, and this is my home and my child she is referring to, so please be careful what she says next. And told her we need to talk in person. She proceeded to ignore me for another day until she finally called, and then the conversation happened in which she called me names and told me I should have kept my mouth shut because she is my elder and she wasn't doing anything wrong. So basically, I was arguing with a brick wall. And all I wanted was for her to acknowledge letting me know who comes over when she watches the baby, even if it's family. My family is treated no differently. It wasn't a jab at her. It was me stating the preference of my home. Update. My fiancé went to his mother's house to talk with her and let her know he wasn't happy with the way she talked to me, as he brought up the subject by saying, "I would like to speak my thoughts on the conversation you two had." His mother immediately became defensive and stated he wasn't going to reprimand her in her own home and that she will never bow down and lick my butt, and she is standing her ground. This ended up with her stating to him, "If this is how you guys feel, then I don't want to see her anyways, the baby." And then she literally ran him out of the house as if she was going to become physical with him and told him he isn't welcome back. I'm speechless. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot OP. It is always a social faux pas to invite someone into a home that is not yours, especially when you are only visiting, without the owner's knowledge. You were not out of line for asking that she at least get into contact with you. Told me I was a witch, and also told me to keep my mouth shut when I'm talking to an elder. Wow, and she wants to participate in her grandchild's life with that mouth. No idiots here. She can be respectful, or she can be a distant grandma. Comment 2. Told me I was a witch, and also told me to keep my mouth shut when I am talking to an elder. How are you supposed to talk to an elder with your mouth shut? Jokes aside, not the idiot. The second she called me a witch, I would have told her she is no longer welcome in my house. Actually, I would have told my partner to tell his own mother that she was no longer welcome in our house. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, I'm back with an update on the situation with my mother-in-law. It's been a wild couple of weeks, and I've got some news to share. After the last confrontation, things went from bad to worse. My fiancé was really upset about how his mom treated him when he tried to talk to her. He's always been the peacemaker in the family, but this time, he was at a loss. We both agreed that we needed to find a middle ground, but it seemed impossible with the way things were going. Now, my mom has been a saint through all of this. She's been watching our daughter like clockwork, never complaining, always so supportive. She's the one who suggested we sit down and have a family meeting to clear the air. I was hesitant at first, but I knew we couldn't keep going on like this. So, we planned a meeting at our house. My mom, my fiancé, and I sat down and waited for my mother-in-law to arrive. The tension was thick. You could cut it with a knife. When she walked in, she had this look on her face like she was ready for battle. But my mom, bless her, started off by talking about how important family is and how we all need to work together for the sake of our little girl. The conversation was rocky at first. My mother-in-law was still on the defensive, bringing up how she raised her son all by herself and how she's always been independent. She talked about her past, how she struggled with addiction but has been clean for years now. She said she felt like we were trying to control her. But then, something unexpected happened. My fiancé, usually so quiet, spoke up. He shared stories from his childhood, the tough times they went through because of her drinking and how it affected him. He told her that he understood her struggles, but now it was about his daughter's well-being. It was like a switch flipped in my mother-in-law. She started to cry, saying she never realized how her actions had hurt her son. She admitted that she was scared of being pushed out of her granddaughter's life, and that's why she reacted so strongly. We all talked for hours, and finally we reached a compromise. My mother-in-law agreed that she would always let us know in advance if she wanted to bring someone over when she was watching the baby. In return, we promised to include her more in our daughter's life, to make sure she felt like a valued part of the family. But here's the jaw-dropping part. My mother-in-law confessed that she had been feeling lonely, and that's why she brought her mom over without asking. She missed the company and wanted to feel needed. It was a moment of vulnerability we had never seen from her before. Since then, things have been better. Not perfect, but better. My mother-in-law has been sticking to the agreement, and we've been making an effort to invite her over for dinner once a week. It's been nice, actually, seeing her play with our daughter and watching them bond. Just yesterday, we had another surprise visit, but this time it was different. My mother-in-law called ahead and asked if it was okay to come over with a small toy she bought for the baby. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to us. It showed that she was trying, that she respected our wishes. My fiancé and I have been reflecting on everything that's happened. We've realized that communication is key, and that we all have our own histories that shape how we act. It's been a learning experience for all of us, and I'm hopeful for the future. My man wanted to test if I'm allergic to fish, so he secretly added anchovies to our pasta sauce. Oh boy, he regrets it after what happened at a dinner party. Let me explain. I, male, late 30s, have an allergy to fish that is non-deadly but serious and uncomfortable. My allergy is not in question. I have been allergic to fish since I was a toddler. My partner, also male, also late 30s, loves fish. He could eat it every day if he could. In some cases, I can apparently eat fish, specifically canned tuna. I don't know why or how, don't ask. The canning process probably changes something, who knows? My partner knows about my fish allergy and my ability to eat canned tuna. Everyone in our shared lives knows about my fish allergy and my ability to eat canned tuna. My fish allergy and my ability to eat canned tuna is common knowledge and a fact of life. A few weeks ago, we ate at a restaurant that we've eaten at before. The server advises that one of the items which I ordered, which I've had versions of before at different restaurants, has anchovies in it. Some non-deadly allergy sufferers will understand here. Sometimes you brush this warning off at restaurants because you know the server and the restaurant say these things merely to cover their bases so that the responsibility is back on you, the customer. I decided to brush off the warning, as I've had the same dish at different restaurants before without any noticeable reaction. Maybe my allergy to anchovies is similar to my allergy to tuna in some way. We ordered the food. I ate it. It was good. No problem. Last week, my partner and I were at his place making a delicious tomato-based pasta sauce. I let the sauce simmer for about 20 minutes and excused myself from the kitchen to help out with some housework. During this time, my partner apparently covertly emptied a whole small tin of anchovies into the sauce without telling me to test his theory that my allergy, specifically to anchovies, wasn't real. He only revealed this tonight over a conversation with friends. Very, very luckily, I did not have a noticeable reaction. During this conversation with our friends, he took particular glee in proving how my allergy was wrong, paraphrased. And by glee, I mean sing-songy voice, childish dancing around the table, and fishing out the emptied tin out of the recycling bin outside and showing it to me to prove his point. So, he did something I did not consent to that could have resulted in an allergic reaction, however major or minor. I felt violated. I felt that he broke my trust. I felt hurt. When our friends left, I told him this, and his response was that I lied to him. About my allergy, when I told the server at that restaurant a few weeks ago that I had a fish allergy, and by doing so, I was in the wrong. Apparently, I'm the bad guy, which feels like a major deflection of wrongdoing, if you ask me. The fact that he didn't understand that his actions hurt me and made me feel violated is bonkers to me. He got angry at me, and I left for the night. I'm trying to make sense of all of this. Am I in the wrong here? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot, what your partner did was potentially dangerous. Allergies are not something you mess around with. If someone says they are allergic to something, you take them at their word and avoid feeding them those things. He is not a doctor. He is not some mad scientist residing in a dark basement testing on rats. He poisoned your food for fun to prove his point. This would be a deal breaker for me. He broke your trust in a horrible way. He decided to play Russian roulette with your health, and he was gleeful about it. Comment 2. Not the idiot. It's never okay to tamper with food, especially with allergies. Constant exposure could also lead to problems. A possible explanation for your ability to eat canned fish. Cooking things can destroy or impact the allergen enough to not cause a reaction. That doesn't mean you should experiment because you can't actually see if that's the case without trying. Now, for the update. A lot has happened since my last post, and I need to get this off my chest. After the incident with the anchovies in the pasta sauce, things between my partner and me have been tense, to say the least. I've been reflecting on our history together, trying to understand how we got to this point. My partner, let's call him Alex, has always been the adventurous type, especially when it comes to food. He's the kind of guy who would try the spiciest dish on the menu just for the thrill of it. I admired that about him, his willingness to take risks, but I never thought he'd take a risk with my health. We've been together for a good number of years, and he's seen firsthand the discomfort I've gone through when I've accidentally ingested fish. It's not pretty. I get itchy, my throat feels tight, and I'm generally miserable for a while. So, when he decided to test my allergy, it felt like a betrayal of everything we'd been through. The day after the incident, I was still at my friend's place, trying to cool off. I couldn't believe Alex had been so reckless. I kept replaying the moment he danced around the table, showing off the empty tin of anchovies. It was like he was proud of potentially putting me in harm's way. I decided to confront him about it. I went back to our place and we had it out. I told him how his actions made me feel unsafe and disrespected. He tried to argue that he was just trying to prove a point, that I was overreacting about my allergy. But I wasn't having any of it. I reminded him of the time we went to a seafood restaurant for his birthday. And I had to sit there with my own packed lunch because I couldn't risk eating anything from the menu. Did he think I enjoyed that? Did he think I liked being the odd one out? The argument got heated, and Alex let slip something that made my blood run cold. He admitted that this wasn't the first time he'd done something like this. A few months back, we'd gone to a barbecue at a friend's place, and I'd had a reaction. I thought it was because of cross-contamination, but Alex confessed that he'd slipped some fish oil into one of the dishes. He said he did it because he thought it was all in my head. I was floored. I couldn't believe he'd been experimenting on me, using me as his personal lab rat. It was a massive breach of trust, and I didn't know if I could forgive him. The next day, I went to see a lawyer. I wanted to know what my options were, because this felt like it bordered on something criminal. The lawyer was sympathetic and told me that while it might be difficult to pursue legal action, I had grounds to file a complaint if I chose to. Meanwhile, Alex was trying to make amends. He sent me texts, left voicemails, and even showed up at my work with a bouquet of flowers. But I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. Then, 2 days ago, something happened that I didn't expect. We were both invited to a mutual friend's dinner party. I was hesitant to go, but I didn't want to let what happened between us affect my friendships. I showed up, and so did Alex. The dinner was awkward at first, but then our host, who's a bit of a foodie, started talking about this exotic fish dish he'd prepared. He went into detail about the ingredients and the preparation. I could see Alex getting uncomfortable, shifting in his seat. When the dish was served, Alex was the first to take a bite. He chewed, swallowed, and then his face went pale. Turns out, our host had used a type of fish that Alex had always claimed to be allergic to. He'd never been tested, but he avoided it like the plague. Within minutes, Alex was experiencing the same symptoms I would have if I'd eaten fish. It was a mild reaction, but enough to scare him. I didn't take pleasure in seeing him uncomfortable, but there was a part of me that thought, now you know how it feels. The irony wasn't lost on me, and I could tell it wasn't lost on him either. After the dinner, Alex came up to me, his eyes red and puffy. He apologized. This time it seemed sincere. He said he finally understood the fear and the feeling of betrayal I must have felt. He promised he'd never do anything like that again. Parents always give my siblings the best of everything, but I get the leftovers. Oh boy, I make them pay for it. I, 27-year-old man, am the third of 4 siblings and have always felt like an afterthought. Laurie, 33-year-old woman, Chuck, 29-year-old man, and Jade, 25-year-old woman, have always gotten the first and best from my parents and each other. I get the leftovers, if I'm lucky. I haven't gotten a birthday present from any of my siblings in about 10 years, but I still get asked to pitch in for group gifts for each of them every year. On Friday night, we were having a family dinner, and it honestly felt like every other sentence was a dig at me, or a less than subtle brag by my siblings about something they have been given by my parents that I was denied. They talked about how nice almost all of our weddings were, but made sure to mention it was okay that my wife and I had a small, low-key wedding. And it was okay. We loved it, but they brushed over the fact that my parents paid for all of my siblings' weddings, but not mine, because somehow they couldn't afford it, because they were saving up for Jade's wedding. They brought up how little student loans they have, because my parents helped them. All of them lived on campus at expensive 4-year schools. I lived at home and went first to a very prestigious, very hard to get into watchmaking school. I got paid to attend this school, so I paid rent at home. My parents paid for my tools. And I appreciate the help, I really do. But they paid $120,000 to $150,000 each for my siblings. They gave me $7,000 for tools. But to them, it's equal. When I went back to school on my own, I didn't ask for money and wasn't offered it. When my brother went back to school, they covered everything without him even having to ask. There were many other small moments, comments about cars and other lifestyle choices. But what made me snap was my brother and his wife mentioning their marriage being so great because they do things like spontaneous dates, like the one they had the prior Friday night. The Friday night, where my parents called my wife and I last minute to cancel plans, they had to eat dinner at our house because they had to watch Chuck's kids because of an emergency. Turns out that emergency was a dinner for Chuck and my sister-in-law at Texas Roadhouse. I had spent hours making my grandpa's ziti and meatballs with homemade marinara because it's my mom's favorite. I wanted more than anything to scream at them, but instead I got up and left without saying a word, and my wife followed me. When my mom called me later to ask why I left, I just explained exactly why. I explained the favoritism, the unfairness, and the fact that it doesn't feel like they care about me. She didn't say much, and I wasn't really looking for an explanation or an apology in the moment. I just felt like it was self-evident, but if she really didn't see it, I'd spell it out. Evidently, at least parts of what I said have been shared with my siblings, because now Chuck and Laurie are furious at me and saying I ruined dinner, and my mom is upset that I am hurt. They say I'm immature for keeping score. Am I the idiot? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Time to go low. Contact with your family, as spending time with them sounds as if it's a major chore that ends up hurting your valid feelings. Enjoy your wife and your life. Chuck and Laurie are just upset that they were finally called out. I would go no contact with them. Edited to add, your ziti and meatballs with homemade sauce sounds delightful. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Your siblings are keeping score as well. They use that score to belittle you every time they see you. Your parents, including your mom, who is all of a sudden upset that you are hurt, have allowed that to happen. Your mom is only upset because you finally stood up for yourself and called them all out. Keep on keeping score, they certainly will. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments on my last post. It's been a chaotic 3 months since then, and a lot has happened. I never expected things to escalate the way they did, but here we are. After that dinner blow-up, things got icy at home. My wife and I tried to keep to ourselves, but my family's drama has a way of pulling you back in. Chuck and Laurie were still mad at me for ruining dinner, and Jade was awkwardly trying to stay neutral. My parents, on the other hand, were doing their usual dance of pretending nothing was wrong. But then, 2 weeks later, my mom called me out of the blue. She was crying, saying she and Dad had been talking, and they realized they had been unfair to me. I was skeptical, but I agreed to meet them for coffee. It was a tense conversation, but they actually apologized. They even offered to help pay off some of my student loans as a way to make amends. I was floored. It felt like maybe, just maybe, things were taking a turn for the better. That feeling didn't last long. The next family gathering was Jade's birthday. I thought it would be a good chance to start fresh, but the moment I walked in, I could feel the tension. Chuck and Laurie were giving me the cold shoulder, and my parents were awkwardly overcompensating with their attention to me. It was uncomfortable, to say the least. Then, the bomb dropped. Chuck's wife, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly announced she was leaving him. She accused him of having an affair with Laurie. The room went dead silent. I couldn't believe it. My brother and sister caught in this mess. It was like a bad soap opera. The fallout was immediate. My parents were devastated, trying to mediate between their children while dealing with their own sense of betrayal. Jade was crying, feeling like her birthday was ruined. And me? I was just standing there, feeling like the only sane person in a madhouse. In the weeks that followed, the family was in chaos. Chuck and Laurie were both trying to do damage control, but it was too late. The secret was out, and it was tearing the family apart. My parents were trying to hold things together, but you could tell they were struggling. Amidst all this, my wife and I found out we were expecting our first child. It should have been a happy time, but with the family in shambles, it was bittersweet. We decided to keep the news to ourselves for a while, not wanting to add to the drama. But secrets have a way of coming out. When we finally shared our news, the reaction was mixed. My parents were overjoyed, but Chuck and Laurie were too caught up in their own problems to care much. Jade was happy for us, but I could tell she was still hurt by everything that had happened. As for me, I was dealing with my own heartbreak. Despite everything, I still loved my siblings. Seeing them at their lowest, knowing the pain they had caused each other and the rest of the family, it hurt. I wanted to be there for them, but I also felt betrayed. It was a mess of emotions that I'm still trying to sort through. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated, my parents dropped another bomb. They were getting a divorce. Years of favoritism and financial strain had taken their toll, and they couldn't pretend anymore. It was like the foundation of our family had crumbled. So here we are, 3 months later. My wife and I are preparing for our baby, trying to stay positive amidst the family drama. Chuck and Laurie are both in therapy, trying to work through their issues. Jade is doing her best to stay out of it, but I can tell she's hurting too. As for my parents, they're trying to navigate this new reality. They're both reaching out to me more, which I appreciate, but it's hard not to feel like it's too little, too late. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.